Once upon a time, there was a vibrant African town called Waza. Waza was a town nestled between rolling green hills and red clay roads. Life pulsed like a beating drum, where cultures clashed and mingled, a place where rich and poor, Hausa and Igbo, mingled on the narrow streets filled with lively markets, the smells of spicy suya grilling in the evenings and the sound of haggling voices. Each morning, the bustling market awoke as the sun stretched its first rays over the humble stalls, filling the air with the scent of spices, roasted corn, and freshly fried akra. In a small corner of this lively marketplace, a young woman named Adana sold her famous akra. Adana was beautiful, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that held a depth of kindness beyond her years. She was only 24 but carried herself with a grace that brought calm even in the noisiest crowd. Every morning, before the first rooster crowed, Adana would rise to grind beans and prepare her spices, her hands moving in rhythm as she dreamed of a brighter future for herself and her younger brother, Chidi. Adana's life was humble, but she was happy. She was well loved in the town for her warmth, her compassion, and the pride she took in her work. But little did she know, her world was about to change one afternoon. As the sun blazed high and the market was alive with voices, a young man named Idris arrived. Idris was Hausa, tall and handsome with deep, dark eyes and a quiet intensity that turned heads wherever he went. His family was wealthy and respected, owners of vast lands and businesses in the city. But Idris had been sent to Waza to oversee the family's new ventures, and although he was reluctant at first, the simple beauty of the town began to grow on him. As Idris walked through the market that day, something sweet and familiar drifted on the breeze, the scent of freshly fried akra. It drew him in like a spell, guiding him to a small wooden stall tucked in a corner. There, behind a modest table, stood Adana, her hands working expertly as she fried and served her akra. Idris was captivated. Not just by the smell, not even just by the beauty of Adana's face, but by her spirit, the way she looked up and met his eyes with confidence and warmth, without a hint of shyness. He ordered some akra, his heart beating a little faster as she handed it to him with a soft smile. The first bite left him speechless. It was like no akra he had ever tasted before, rich and spicy with a hint of sweetness, perfectly crisp. But even more, it was made with love, and that, he knew, was what made it special. Days turned into weeks, and Idris found himself returning to Adana's stall again and again. Each day he learned something new about her, her love for her brother, her dreams of a better life, the strength she held beneath her gentle exterior. And slowly, Adana began to learn about Idris, his kindness, his humility, and the way he looked at her with a quiet longing he never spoke aloud. But their budding love was not without shadows. The sun was setting over Waza, painting the sky with streaks of purple and orange, casting a glow over the marketplace as vendors packed up and children chased each other along the dusty road. Adana was finishing up her day, wiping down her small stall and humming a tune as she counted her modest earnings. To most, her life seemed simple, even humble, but she was content. But in the heart of Waza, there was one person who despised her, Alhaji Musa. Alhaji Musa was a powerful, wealthy man, with the respect of the town and businesses that stretched from one city to the next. His eldest son, Idris, was the apple of his eye, the one Alhaji Musa had raised to take over the family empire, to carry on the family legacy. Alhaji had grand plans for Idris. He wanted him to marry a woman from a prominent family, someone who would bring honor, prestige, and a future filled with wealth and power. Idris's father, Alhaji Musa, was a stern traditional man. When he discovered his son was spending time with a street food seller, he was furious. This was not the future he had planned for Idris. He had arranged for his son to marry a girl from a wealthy family, a match that would bring honor and fortune. Alhaji Musa made it clear that Idris was to end this nonsense with Adana or risk being disowned. But Idris had fallen in love with Adana, a simple street food seller, from a family of little means, and, most damning of all in Alhaji Musa's eyes, she was not Hausa. She was Igbo, from a different world, the one Alhaji Musa saw as inferior, far beneath his son. This was an insult he could not bear, a blemish on his family's honor that he would do anything to erase. One morning, Adana was in the market, setting up her store, her heart light and her thoughts on Idris, who had promised to visit her later that day. She didn't see Alhaji Musa until he was standing right before her, a cold, intense glare in his eyes. "Adana," he said, his voice as icy as his gaze. "I know about you and my son." Adana felt a chill run down her spine, but she stood tall, meeting his gaze with quiet strength. "Yes, Alhaji Musa. I care for Idris deeply." Alhaji Musa sneered, looking her up and down. "Do you think a woman like you is fit for my son? You are nothing but a street seller. You have no wealth, no status. And worst of all, you are not even Hausa. You are beneath us, Adana. You do not belong in my family." The words stung, but Adana held her ground. "I may not be wealthy, but my love for Idris is true. We do not choose who we fall in love with, Alhaji. I would never harm him, I only want him to be happy." But Alhaji Musa's face hardened even more. Happiness. He spat the word as if it were bitter on his tongue. "You think love and happiness matter in my world? You think they will help Idris inherit my legacy? You will end this nonsense, Adana. Or I will make sure your life becomes a living hell." Adana's heart pounded as Alhaji Musa's cold words sank in. She knew he was a man of power, but she hadn't imagined he would threaten her this way. And yet, her love for Idris was stronger than her fear. She nodded, her voice soft but resolute. "With all due respect, Alhaji Musa, I cannot stop loving your son. My heart belongs to him." Alhaji Musa's face twisted with anger. "You'll regret this," he hissed before turning and walking away. The days that followed were filled with torment for Adana. Alhaji Musa used his power to make her life unbearable. He bribed her landlord to evict her, leaving her and her young brother Chidi homeless. She had to scramble to find another place to live, settling for a cramped, leaking room in the poorest part of town. When she returned to the market, she found her stall destroyed, her cooking utensils broken. Alhaji Musa had paid men to vandalize her livelihood, hoping it would break her spirit. Each night, as she lay in her tiny room, Adana cried, the pain of loss and helplessness pressing down on her. But she clung to her memories of Idris, his warm smile, his comforting words. He had no idea what his father was doing, and she didn't want to tell him. She didn't want him caught in the middle of this war. One evening, however, Idris found her, exhausted and teary-eyed, carrying the last of her things from the market after yet another attack on her store. When he asked her what was wrong, she finally broke down, pouring out everything his father had done to try to push her away. Idris was furious. He took her hand, his own heart breaking as he saw the pain in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Adana. I had no idea he would go this far. But I promise you, I will not let him win. I will stand by you, no matter what." That night, Idris confronted his father. He found Alhaji Musa in his grand study, surrounded by riches that suddenly seemed hollow. "Father," Idris began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Why are you doing this to Adana? She has done nothing wrong." Alhaji Musa barely looked up. "She is not right for you, Idris. She has no place in our family. But I love her, father," Idris cried. "She is the only one who has ever made me feel complete. She is kind, compassionate, and wise. She makes me a better man. Why can't you see that?" Alhaji Musa's gaze hardened. "Because love will not give you a legacy, Idris. Love will not bring you honor. This girl will drag you down. She is not one of us. Alhaji Musa made it clear again that Idris was to end this nonsense with Adana or risk being disowned. The pressure from his father and the whispers in the market began to weigh on Idris, but he was torn. How could he walk away from someone who made him feel like his true self, someone who saw him as more than just the wealthy son of a powerful man? When Idris told Adana, she felt her heart crack. She knew what it meant to lose family, and she couldn't bear to be the reason Idris lost his. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she told him they had to stop seeing each other. She insisted that he focus on the life his father wanted for him, no matter the cost to her own heart. They parted ways, the memory of their last embrace lingering, a silent ache they each carried. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months. Idris threw himself into his work, yet his mind would drift back to Adana. He would see her face in the crowd, smell the familiar scent of her akara, and remember her laugh. Meanwhile, Adana's heart ached with every thought of him, but she remained determined, throwing herself into her work and caring for her brother. Time passed, but neither of them could move on. Every time Idris walked through the market, his gaze would search for her, even though he knew she wouldn't be there. And every night, as Adana stirred her beans and prepared for the next day, she thought of his warm eyes and his kind smile. She missed him with a depth that was indescribable, and yet, she knew she couldn't ask him to choose her over his family. One stormy night, the marketplace was rocked by a sudden fire. Lightning had struck, setting the stalls ablaze. Flames danced and spread quickly, eating up everything in their path. Adana, who was still working late, heard the screams and rushed out, only to see her beloved stall, her livelihood, her dreams, consumed by fire. She ran into the flames, desperate to save her stall, her only source of livelihood. Word spread quickly, and Idris, who was working late, heard about the fire. Without a second thought, he rushed to the market, heart pounding. When he reached the flames, he saw Adana struggling to drag her supplies to safety. Without a moment's hesitation, he leapt into the fire to help her. They fought the blaze together, side by side, until at last, exhausted and soot-covered, they managed to salvage what they could. Wrapping his arms around her and shielding her from the flames. They stood there together, feeling the heat of the flames, yet knowing that they had already survived something hotter. As the fire died down, they sat together in silence, their eyes meeting through tears and ashes. At that moment, Idris knew he could not walk away. He realized that life without Adana was no life at all. His heart, like the fire that night, burned with a fierce love that could not be extinguished by his father's wishes or society's whispers. When he returned home, he faced his father with strength he had never shown before. He said to his father, "I love her, father." Idris cried. "She is the only one who has ever made me feel complete. She is kind, compassionate, and wise. She makes me a better man. Why can't you see that? She is everything I have ever wanted. And if you force me to choose, then know that I choose her." He begged his father to see past her humble beginnings, and to know that true wealth was found in the heart. For the first time, Alhaji Musa looked shaken. He had not expected his son to defy him so openly. He saw a glimmer of the man he had raised, strong and fearless. Moved by his son's words and by the courage he showed, one night, he called Idris to him, his face softer, his eyes filled with resignation. "If this is truly what you want, if she makes you happy, then go, my son." Idris embraced his father, knowing the depth of his love, even in its flawed ways. And as he returned to Adana, the joy in her eyes was brighter than any riches he could imagine. Alhaji Musa blessed their union, realizing that wealth without love was empty, and that his son had chosen someone who would bring honor to their family in ways he had never imagined. Their wedding was a celebration like no other. The entire town gathered to witness the union of the street seller and the wealthy elle. Adana wore a simple, white dress next to Idris. She looked more beautiful than any queen. Together, they built a new store. Their love grew stronger, and with time, they won the respect and acceptance of those around them. Idris continued to build his business in town, with Adana by his side, her Accra store flourishing, as her brother Chidi joined school. Idris and Adana's love story became the heart of Waza, a tale that reminded everyone that true wealth lay not in gold, but in the courage to stand by those we love, through every hardship and through every test. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from this tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you.